Welcome to New Awakenings with Edgar Cayce's A.R.E, where together through some incredible conversations, we go on beautiful journeys of discovery that might shape the way you think about things and could even change your life.
Our guest today is a holistic veterinarian who has been practicing since 1995. He's certified in veterinary, acupuncture, chiropractic, and Chinese herbology. His research of the Edgar Cayce readings have led him to apply many of Cayce's concepts in his daily life and vet practice.
He's an international speaker and was recognized as the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association Holistic Teacher of the Year in 2018.
Nicely done.
Thank you. He is currently the coordinator for the Pittsburgh area A.R.E and recently served on the A.R.E board. And he has made time in his very busy schedule to join us on this show today. Welcome, Dr. Doug Knueven.
Hey, nice to meet you guys. Great to be here.
It's great to have you here, Doctor. I mean, obviously, the elephant in the room is holistic veterinary practice. Like, you don't think about animals
really don't.
when you come to holistic medicine. So, how did you come to decide, hey, I'm going to take this practice and use it on animals?
Well, I'll tell you that when I was in veterinary school, and this was back in the 1980s, the 1980s.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes. After class, there was a local veterinarian to the college who did acupuncture, and he came in and did a lecture about acupuncture in animals. And this was when I was a sophomore. And so that was kind of a seed that was planted. I graduated from veterinary school in '87, but it wasn't until the mid-'90s that I realized, you know what, health and healing, there's got to be more to it than what I learned in veterinary school. Mm-hmm. And then that kind of sent me on my journey into holistic medicine. Mm. And I started with acupuncture. I got certified to do acupuncture in 1995, and I started sticking needles in the animals, and amazing things were happening. And then I started to attract these weird people to my office. I think I might be talking to two of them.
Probably.
Thank you for beating us to the punch on that one.
I was just going to ask you, how did people respond to that? Because you just don't think about giving your dog acupuncture.
Well, right. And so I practiced in a little town north of Pittsburgh called Beaver, Pennsylvania. It's not exactly the hotbed of holistic medicine. and I was so excited. You know, I was doing, I took this class and it was a 6-month journey of education into this whole mind-blowing way, a different way of thinking of health. And so every case that came in, I was like, oh, we could do acupuncture. And most of the time people were like, what? No way. You know, this was in the mid-'90s. And so I learned to just kind of pick and choose. It was usually cases where nothing else was working, mm-hmm. and the people were willing to try anything. And then I would say, hey, let's do this. And then once the word got out that there was a veterinarian in Beaver that was doing acupuncture, then I started attracting people from all over the area.
Damn.
What?
Do you want to do that?
No. Beaver Dam. Oh, jeez.
Sorry.
Oh, gosh. It has begun.
We have something in common, I hear. So the question that pops to my mind, you mentioned putting needles in dogs. My dog, we can't even get him to sit down and get his nails trimmed.
It's terrible.
How does a dog react to having needles put in him or her?
Yeah, because don't they have to kind of stay in that position?
Right. And so I would say that most animals that come to me for acupuncture, they're sickly, they're usually the older animals, and they're more sedentary.
Okay.
I have had some animals where, I put the needles in and then they lay down, which I can't imagine what that would feel like, but they seem to deal with it just fine. I have some animals occasionally where the owner just has to kind of hold them still for the whole, 15, mm-hmm. 20 minutes that the needles are in.
Right.
I'll tell you one case that I had. It was a dog that was in a car accident. So it wasn't hit by the car, it was in the car when it crashed, and it hit its head, and it had this compulsive behavior where it just could not calm down until it passed out. So they would put it outside and it would just circle around their yard, the fence in their yard, until they went out and got it. And it would just walk constantly.
Wow.
And so when they came in for acupuncture, I told them, usually I do this with the dog laying down, and the owner said, oh, well, good luck with that, because the only time this dog lays down is when it's exhausted by the end of the day. And I said, well, that's okay, we can do it standing up. And there's a point on the top of the head that's a calming point. I put a needle in that point, and the dog went, shh. It just slid down in the owner's arms and laid there and relaxed for the first time in I don't know how long, like I think
Wow.
6 months.
Oh.
So it's amazing to me how powerful these points can be.
Absolutely,
Oh
Doc.
my
I think I
gosh.
need to go visit you because I need to
For him.
relax.
I'll stick a needle in you.
I think I'd rather go to a doctor.
So you've been practicing acupuncture with the animals, but I know that holistic medicine entails a lot more than just acupuncture. Do you do other things like Reiki or nutrition-based healing?
So, when I started attracting these people to my office, some of them came in with like little sugar pills and they said, Dr. Doug, what do we do with this homeopathic remedy? It's like, I don't know, they didn't teach me about that in vet school, and they didn't even say anything about it in acupuncture school. So I took a course in homeopathy. And then because I was working with acupuncture, I was working on a lot of back cases. And so I decided I needed to get certified to do chiropractic. So I got certified to do chiropractic. And then again with acupuncture, it made sense. I learned about Chinese herbal medicine. So, I did a course on Chinese herbal medicine. And so it's kind of like once you get started, there's more and more modalities. And nutrition is so important. I quickly learned that if the animals weren't being fed properly, they weren't going to get better no matter what I did. So I did a lot of self-study in nutrition. But I haven't thrown the baby out with the bathwater. I still think there's value in Western medicine. Like last week, I prescribed Viagra for a snake.
What?
What?
Yeah, I mean, the snake obviously needed Viagra because it had a reptile dysfunction.
Oh.
The minute I said what, I'm like, oh boy.
I was going to ask you, how was it obvious? You had me going the whole way. I had no idea.
Well, I thought maybe it helps with the scales. I don't know.
Wow. Okay.
That was good.
We're going to get along just fine. So, Doc, you hear stories or you learn these things about animals not being able to take the same types of even foods that we eat. For example, chocolate's really bad for dogs and things like that. For example, from what we hear, how does holistic medicine, how is it different for animals than for humans, or is it exactly the same?
Well, there are different nutritional needs and toxicities that animals get versus people, but the underlying concept is the same. And I know, that nutrition is just so important for health. And Karen, I'm sure you can really relate to this. I know that you're into nutrition as well. But imagine if you went to your doctor and after the exam, they plopped a bag of people chow on the table and they said, this is all you need to eat the rest of your life. This is going to make your life so simple because you could go home, you could throw out your refrigerator and your stove and just have a big shelf full of this people chow. And every time, it's meal time, you take a scoop of people chow and eat it. And lunchtime, a scoop of people chow. Every meal for the rest of your life. Now, do you think that you could possibly get 100% of what you need nutritionally from a bag of people chow?
I'm assuming you're going to say no, so I'm going to go with no.
And it would be depressing.
Well, yes. No wonder dogs eat their own poop. They're so tired of eating the same food day after day. Anything would be better.
Oh, good God.
So these ultra processed diets are no healthier for animals than they would be for us. So fresh foods are important, but it is also important to get the balance right. So I don't encourage people to just go off and start feeding them what they're eating. But there are nutritionists who specialize in formulating diets that are balanced that people can make for their pets at home. I think that's a good alternative. I'm also a big fan of raw food for animals because, dogs in the wild, or wolves or cats, they don't cook their food before they eat it. And when you cook food, you're destroying some of the nutrients. So that's a whole hour-long discussion right there.
Right.
Well, we have our dog. He's wonderful, but he's got some issues.
He's neurotic.
He is very neurotic. Like like the floor is lava. If it's a wood floor, he has to like jump on the area rugs.
Really?
But, yeah, but one of the reasons we got a dog is because if you drop something, the dog will clean it up, food-wise. No,
Right.
he won't eat anything. And like our other dogs, we would give them carrots from time to time, and like some little things here and there. He won't eat it. Like the only thing he'll eat are like proteins.
Proteins, yeah.
That's
Any
it.
protein he'll scarf up, but anything that's not protein, he just won't go for it.
Yeah.
Well, that's perfectly natural for a dog in the wild. They wouldn't be digging up carrots and eating them.
Right.
They wouldn't be eating starch much at all. In fact, that's one of the problems with conventional diets is they have a lot of starch in there. And there's two reasons that there's starch in pet food. One is that it's a cheap source of calories, and the other is you can't make a nice convenient kibble without the starch to glue it together. So the reason it's there is cost and convenience, not because it's good for the animal in any way. It is unusual. Most dogs will eat a piece of carrot or whatever, like you said, whatever you
Mac and
drop
cheese,
on the floor.
nothing.
Yeah, but that's good. You shouldn't be eating that either.
I know. Well, I mean, I'm glad for him.
Right.
I'm glad. I'm frustrated for us. No.
Right.
No. But even like getting him to take his pills. Oh my gosh. Like
Yeah.
you put it in peanut butter, he won't eat it. Cream cheese, he won't eat it. It's like I had to wrap it in salami, and then he gets it out of the salami and
Yeah.
eats the salami, and then there's the pill.
So maybe liverwurst, because that sticks to it and it's got that strong smell.
That is. Put in
See?
some pate.
Or the other thing that you do is you give him a little piece of the salami first without a pill, and then he's like, oh, this is good. Then you wrap it in salami and give it to him, and then,
I did that, but he still unwrapped
Okay.
it.
you got a smart little dog.
Yeah.
He is.
He is way too smart for
I
his
had to
own
end up
good.
cutting it into like 8 pieces, tiny, so that I could just really jam them in the salami.
Oh, gosh.
Well, I'm curious to learn, the Edgar Cayce really influenced your path forward. I'm curious if you could share with us specifically what about the Cayce readings influenced you down this road.
So I have to say that, I've never perfected the idea of putting a castor oil pack on a dog and with their fur and everything. A lot of the Cayce therapies are really specific for people, but it's really more the philosophy, I think, that has guided me, especially the idea that spirit is the life, mind is the builder, the physical is the result, and really honoring the spiritual connection that we all have with our pets. I mean, I don't even like the word pet because pet implies ownership. And, like, seriously, do you own your dog? Your dog owns you.
That's
Face
true.
it.
Yeah.
So, most people consider their pets to be part of the family and an intrinsic part.
Absolutely.
And so it's really kind of the philosophy of the Cayce readings that I think have really sunk in as far as my journey into holistic medicine for animals.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes great sense. Yeah.
And so have you noticed a big difference in how animals respond when you're treating them holistically than when you were just giving them the regular Western kind of medications and stuff? Besides the acupuncture on the head?
Well, I'll tell you that typically a holistic exam, at my office, I was doing an hour-long exam with the animal. So it gives them time to kind of relax and chill out a little bit, as opposed to, a normal veterinary practice where you're in and out, in and out. And I think just the way that you approach the animal, if you see them as just the next patient, it's different than if you're looking at them as, the member of this person's family. So I would say it's a calmer experience generally.
And I think that's great because so many dogs, it's like time to go to the vet and they start to shake, they walk in the door and they're like antsy. And I think just having that hour to really spend time with them where it's not like, hello, poke, poke, stab, poke, I mean, that's awful. They don't know what's going on. Also, there's places where things shouldn't be. And
I mean, it's only natural to want to be wine and dine before you get a needle in your head.
Exactly.
Or a thermometer.
I have to tell you that, so with the acupuncture, there's a release of endorphins. And animals, dogs especially, really they associate coming to me with this endorphin release. And I've had several clients tell me that they cannot say my name at home because the dog will get excited and run to the door and they can't wait to come. And it's so neat in the waiting room. There's the regular clients that are out there and their animals are all shaking. And then there's the dogs that are coming in for acupuncture and they're wagging their tails and they're pulling their owners down the hallway to get into the exam room. So that's been really a thrill for me as a veterinarian to have that experience.
Absolutely.
I'm sure. And I'm sure even just the energy that you're emitting in those situations also is going to affect the dog and it becomes this big, symbiotic, happy place for everyone.
Yeah, definitely.
That's wonderful.
So,
for sure.
Doctor, are you an oasis in the desert of veterinary medicine, or do you see more and more people adopting these holistic practices in your veterinarian practices?
Yeah, well, when I first started out back in 1995 in holistic medicine, I definitely got a lot of pushback. So I have to tell you, there was a client that came in once, and so a lot of my clients have their regular vet that they go to that's close to them, and then they drive, 45 minutes or an hour to me for holistic medicine. And I had this client come in once, and this was, again, back when I first started, and she said that she went to her veterinarian, and the veterinarian was going to give the dog some vaccines. And I do titers, which is a blood test, to see if they even need the vaccines. And so she told her vet, you don't have to worry about that. I get titers done at my holistic vet up in Beaver. And she barely got the words out of her mouth. And the doctor said, do you mean to tell me that you're going to a doctor with a bone sticking through his nose? Can you believe that?
What?
I mean, how ignorant.
Not just
Everyone knows
ignorant, but racist too.
It's a boar's
Jeez.
tusk. It's a boar's tusk through the nose. Only a quack would have a bone sticking through
Well,
his
that's
nose.
true. How do you get the two knobs?
So that was an early experience. But then lately, I get calls from these local vets because they have questions about the herbs that their client has their patient on, or they have these questions about holistic medicine. So it's really changed. There are more and more holistic doctors, holistic veterinarians out there these days. Still not a ton. There are classes in holistic medicine being taught at veterinary schools. So there's a lot more going on, but it's still, not every veterinarian has embraced this idea just yet.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Um,
Well, then I'll go.
Lost my train of thought.
So now people are becoming more aware of this, and hopefully, like most good pet families, or not pet, but dog families.
Well, what would you call that? If not a pet, what are they? A family member?
A furry family member.
I call them animal companions.
Okay, perfect. I like that.
So if people want to try to really prevent health issues with their animal companions, what are some things they can do at home that will kind of maybe prevent them from having to go see a veterinarian?
Well, I'll tell you, we've kind of touched on a couple of them. For me, number one is nutrition and getting them off these ultra-processed diets and onto something more natural. Even farmer's dog, or what's the other one? There's another cooked diet out there. It's better than the processed food. Or doing a homemade diet but in a balanced way is helpful. So diet for me is number one. A lot of times nutritional supplements will go along with that. So probiotics are really important for health for both animals and for us. Omega-3 fatty acids, so like fish oil. So like your little dog that has mental issues.
He's crazy.
It's possible that fish oil can help.
Oh.
It's possible that probiotics can help as well. There are probiotics that are specifically helpful in anxiety situations. So that's something to consider. So diet, nutritional supplements, and then not over-vaccinating. So I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I worked at a humane society for 5 years early on in my career, and I saw what happened when dogs didn't get their vaccines. You know, parvo was something that we were seeing all the time back then. We don't see as much of it today, but there are outbreaks periodically. But there are things that you can do to cut back on vaccinations. I mentioned the idea of titers. So a titer is a blood test that measures the antibody level. And if the antibodies are at an adequate level, it shows they don't need the vaccine. And I'll tell you a little story. Well, I'll tell you a couple of stories. One thing that people probably don't realize is that when the animal gets vaccinated, every dog gets the same dose of the vaccine. Whether it's a half-pound Chihuahua puppy or a 200-pound Great Dane.
Oh, no kidding.
Wow.
Yeah. And studies show that the less the dog weighs, the more likely they are to have, you know, adverse effects of the vaccine, which is kind of a no-brainer.
Sure.
Yeah.
But veterinarians had to do a study to prove this. and so there was a very small study. It only involved about 12 dogs, but they looked at doing half the dose of the vaccine in dogs that were 12 pounds or less. And then they measured the antibody response to the vaccine, and they found that they responded adequately to the vaccine. But I did a little study on my own dog even before that study came out. So my last dog was a Maltese, and her last vaccine was when she was 12 weeks old, and I only gave her half the dose because to me it just never made sense that we give the same dose. And I did titers every year after that. 15 years later, she still had adequate immunity from that vaccine when she was 12 weeks old.
Wow.
So
Now, yeah, so that's the possibilities.
yeah, it opens up questions though about, I think for licensing purposes, right? You have to show proof of vaccines, current vaccines, things like that.
To go to the boarding
Right,
kennels and
so-
stuff.
Well, rabies is the only legally mandated vaccine. And I don't cheat on that one because that's a legal issue. So everyone gets the same dose of that one. But as far as titers go, you can definitely talk to the boarding kennel. A lot of kennels are on board with titers versus vaccines.
Oh, okay.
So for me, titers are for the distemper and parvo part of the vaccine. So it doesn't help with leptospirosis. It doesn't help with like kennel cough or you know, canine influenza or rabies. I don't recommend titers for those, but at least the distemper parvo can be, you know, possibly mitigated a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. So if someone doesn't know how to feed their dog properly, or the cat, or their pet, or the companion properly, what kind of resources are out there for us to educate ourselves about how to help our companions live better?
Yeah, you know, that's really a good question because most of the propaganda that's out there is put out there by the major pet food companies.
Sure.
And in fact, it's, I call it, you know, the pet food industrial complex because so in veterinary school, veterinary students get free pet food from the major pet food companies.
Of course.
The teaching hospital that they learn how to be veterinarians at get their food from the major pet food companies. The nutritionist that teaches them about nutrition most likely got their education sponsored by a major pet food company.
Wow.
The textbook that they learn about nutrition from was written by major pet food companies. And continuing education that's available for veterinarians is usually sponsored by the major pet food companies. So veterinarians have these blinders on that this is what nutrition is all about. I guess as far as getting educated about a more natural way of finding nutrition for your pet. I mean, there are some raw pet food companies out there. The one that I like the best is called Nature's Variety or Instinct Raw Food. That's kind of the brand under Nature's Variety. If you were to go to their website, if you Google them and go to their website, they have a lot of educational information for pet parents about proper nutrition.
Wow.
I have a website. I used to do a blog every week, and I haven't done it for almost 10 years now. But
Oh, so it's quite recent then.
Yes, yeah, right up to date. But there is a lot of information on my website about nutrition and vaccines that's still, most of it's still applicable. So drddougknueven.com. And so those would be places that I would suggest that you can go.
Okay.
I have,
Go ahead.
I have one question speaking about dog food. I know that for some people, the raw food that's available, it might be a little bit cost prohibitive because it is more pricey. But, and I could be totally wrong, which is why I'm asking you, I've heard that if people are eating like the raw foods or those kind of more specialty foods, if dogs or cats are eating this, that they actually need less of that than the kibble because of the lack of fillers? Okay, so that's true then.
Yes. And the other thing I would say is that some real food is better than none at all. So if you can't afford to go all the way raw, supplementing the diet with a little bit of this food as much as you can afford, I think is beneficial.
That's great.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
This has been absolutely incredibly eye-opening. Thank you so much, Doctor, for coming and showing us the error of our ways, because we are those kibble people, but no more. This has completely changed my way forward with our companion.
Yes.
So thank you for
I'm glad to hear that, and I don't mean to guilt or shame you or anything like that. But
no, we just don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
We just didn't know. So now we know, and now shame on us if we don't make any changes.
Right.
But so thank you so much, Doctor, for coming on the show. We put your website down on screen as you were speaking of it.
Really quick, you're going to be at the A.R.E. Pet Conference.
Oh,
is that correct?
gosh.
So just tell us about that real quick.
Talking about ways you can get educated.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the A.R.E. has a pet conference coming up. I think it's the first or second weekend in March. Hopefully I'll be there on time.
Check the website.
That's right. I'll be speaking, and I'll be talking about kind of holistic medicine in general. That'll be Friday evening. And then all day Saturday, they have this amazing lineup of animal communicators. So imagine, being able to tune into your pet and really understand what's going on. And then half the day on Sunday, I'm going to be talking about energy medicine and massage. So it's going to be exciting. It's both online and in person. So if you can't be at Virginia Beach, you can at least tune in with your computer. So it's going to be great.
That is very important to understand.
And maybe you can meet him and swap dad jokes.
And good jokes.
I got a million of them.
Good jokes, not bad jokes. But all right, so Doc, if you are unsure of the dates, then by all means just go to edgarcayce.org and you'll be happy to you'll find the events all listed there, so it's easy for you to register for it. So once again, Doctor, thank you so much for being on the show.
Great, thanks. Nice to meet you both.
Likewise.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, that does it for this episode of New Awakenings with Edgar Cayce's A.R.E. If you missed any part of this interview or any of our others, you can always go to edgarcayce.org/resources and you'll see all the podcast episodes laid in there so that it's easy for you to consume them. We appreciate you coming on. Until next time, this has been New Awakenings with Edgar Cayce's A.R.E.
Bye.